Hello, and welcome to This Week, where we do not find ourselves on the infinite, but instead, it's a tale of variance, hosted by our very own Charlie. Say hello, Charlie.
Hello, Charlie.
Oh, Charlie.
Right. Now you're in charge, because you are the GM now. I give you my imaginary GM hat. It's a better hat than what you're wearing.
All right. So I actually wrote a summary of the last episode because I knew that none of y'all were gonna watch it and remember what happened.
That's right,
And
I
the
watched
pre-show. Okay, well you watched it, but
Just my bits, though.
our pre-show chatter.
I don't have eyes.
You don't have eyes. Yeah, it's true. It's a sad. You don't have very pretty eyes today either. So in our last episode, we found
The
really
energy.
delayed.
The energy is
Chris
wrong.
took that as like
You've got to be so much meaner than this, Charlie. You can't compliment people's eyes at the start. People will come to expect it.
Oh yeah, this is true. This is my failing as a GM. Now. In our last episode, we found some crew of the Variance occupying themselves in leisure time as the ship drifted in surveillance mode. Quad and Zyrea, you were grappling in the ship's gym as your fans in the security room bet on the outcome. Vito made sure that the ship's maintenance and custodial staff had fresh Dranian food with plenty of rice. And after their contest, our brawlers found the endearment-dropping Selmac in the ship's music production rooms, where Zyrea commissioned his services for her matches, and Quad imagined how Selmac would look after a quick reprimand for his choice in greeting. After Celeste received an unsettling and very sparse briefing about the mission ahead, the away team gathered without any type of chaos whatsoever. Under Celeste's very confident leadership. And Vito's vigorous youth was on absolute full glorious display. Selmac, your audio and safety engineering skills in particular were tested. So now as we start this scene, the camera flicks through the verdant undergrowth and it's following this small mottled white and gray bird. It's no larger than a bee, and it's darting between these pale green flowers and through verdant purple leaves. That this buzzing bird just swoops past the away team, hovers for a moment above Selmac. Selmac, the thing that you noticed at the end of last scene was the signs of dangerous plants in the area. There are a few fallen and decaying small animals, a lack of signs of larger grazers, and there's these verdant plants that are vined and crawling up larger woody plants. You've all been on this planet for very little time. It's warm and brightly colored, but you're not in a tropical zone, so there's this cool breeze coming from the lake that you landed next to. And since it's been a minute since we've played, and I absolutely, definitely, as the GM, did not forget to properly ask you to introduce the characters' appearances last session, let's go ahead and describe what each of you look like.
I described my character last time.
You did. You did, in fact, describe yourself thoroughly.
Right, you can skip me.
Can we get a reminder, though? As players?
Yeah.
No.
All right.
I'll go first.
I think
I spoke up.
No, I'll describe Selmac as I imagine him, and it's Timothy Chalamet.
Sure.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I have alien phalanges instead of hair. So I've got like that are swept back that almost look like they're slicked back. He is a light purplish color. And he is not wearing, I think
he's still wearing seatbelts.
He's still wearing seatbelts. No, he's got his Deus Lab kind of permanently affixed in his hand, but is otherwise wearing the Variance ship's uniform, the lightest version of it that qualifies as armor.
A weird trail off. Quad, I think is she definitely came out of the ship last, if I remember correctly, and she's kind of walking down. She has her hands in the pockets of. She kind of has a almost jumpsuit, but she's got a coat on over the top of it. And she's got her hands in the pocket, and she's like tilting her head to the sky and breathing out, sort of like you would breathe out after taking a drag of a cigarette, or for the younger viewers, after vaping. As she like feels her genealogy shift a little bit. She's like naturally an aquatic, like she breathes underwater naturally as her race, so it takes a little bit of time for her to change to like the slight different atmosphere. She has a long, flowing, reddish hair, a little bit more towards orange than to red, but it drapes down across scaled, bluey green tinged skin. Her coat is white because she is, of course, a scientist, but her underneath jumpsuit is a little bit more stylish than you would expect in the Imperial fleet. When the coat is closed, those bits look like they're just plain dark blue to complement her skin, but the rest of it is very much like bedazzled with little flare bits, where there's like a sign of like maybe a little pin of Zyrea, and then someone else has like a little patch that's like she has made that is like her wrestling persona that doesn't really exist. There's like a couple of things, one about her sister and stuff like that, that you can only see when she like lets her coat open. And she's walking with a big, very thin steel spear that is planting into the ground. And she's kind of using it to feel what the texture of the ground is like as she steps off the runway. Well, I guess fuck me then. Back to the Infinite.
The Charlie drop.
Yeah. Charlie's like, well, why would Jack's character introduction be the thing that broke the...
Actually, my dog took opposition to that character introduction and hit my keyboard in such a way that it appeared to close
That's
down.
fine. I was too confident, and I forgot Quadrissia's last session experience, and now I am correctly put in my place to
There you
be the useless fifth party member.
Yeah. Well, Murphy complained, so I don't know. Maybe we just reroll. No. So Quad and their glowing orange hair. Did you describe the star spear in that second that I was gone, or what's it called?
I did at the very end. It's a very thin kind of steel spear, and the end of it is at the moment unpowered, but when it powers up, it's got an energy spear on the end. And she's using the bottom of it to kind of test the density of the surface to see if it like is very loamy or anything like that, or very like swampish.
And yes, she will notice that compared to the ground, so you had just crossed into some more loamy material as the kind of undergrowth started up, but it feels fairly solid underfoot. There's no real indication of swampy material or like any sort of like loss of footing. And as you look kind of like ahead into this area ahead of you, there's like a lot of humus that makes the ground soft, but that's it.
She doesn't mention that. It feels like everybody should just be aware of that from the way it feels underfoot.
Yeah. And so, Madi, would you like to describe?
Sure, I totally remember what Zyrea looks like. Zyrea is a tall humanoid alien, I guess. She has metal bony protrusions that start at the crown of the forehead, and there's just certain ones that just kind of come down through her entire face. I don't recall what color hair she has or how long it is, but she's got hair of some kind. But she's in a whatever her required jumpsuit is, but she definitely has the sleeves like rolled up so she can have better freedom of movement, I guess. And is in some heavy armor, and she has I think she uses a sword. Yep, and she has
Yeah,
a
I'm
big
pretty
great
sure.
sword sheathed on her back. And she's also thinking of wrestling moves the whole time as we are currently walking along.
All right. Chris, you're up. What is Vito looking like? And I will remind you also that the gravity on this planet is a little bit lighter than standard. So.
Vito is a fairly short, and some would say stout, some would say rotund, gray-skinned, aardvark-like, elephant-like person thing that currently has the standard issue jumpsuit, which, after getting onto the planet, has slightly kind of unzipped the front a bit, just for a bit more breathability, only to reveal that he's actually wearing this kind of like a collared shirt with a tie underneath the jumpsuit, so it doesn't really help anything. He has kind of like long, kind of droopy, floppy ears and a bald, gray-skinned head that kind of goes with the rest of his body, with a bit of like black or kind of darker spots just that have appeared with age across the skin. His eyes are kind of just like a pure kind of black. And then underneath the long kind of snout is just a bit of white hair that creates kind of the illusion of a slightly translucent handlebar, as he is currently walking surprisingly light on top of the ground, more so out of habit than any type of intention, though he is muttering to himself as he's trying to like use a free hand to bat large plants out of the way as Zyrea keeps cutting directly above his head level, so it does not aid him at all in the traversal. As you just kind of hear him like muttering, "Oh my god, why does nature got to be so tall all the damn time?" As he's like,
I sympathize. I sympathize with Vito. Yeah. So your last xenobotany check, Selmac, uncovered the presence of poisonous plants in the area.
True. I believe that there are many poisonous plants in the. Watch your step.
What does Celeste
Hey.
look like?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Jack.
No worries.
I was like, I even earlier checklisted, and I was like, okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and meh.
I will say, of everybody in the group, Celeste is the least alien to what us as like viewers and players would consider. She is human. She's very humanoid. She has the pallor of someone who was once a very sickly child, and has had to do a lot of like work and go to a lot of doctor's appointments to sort of get through that to become a healthy, like reasonably capable, physically adult. She's got she's not like as short as Vito, but is one of the shorter people in this group, coming in at like the round 5'4", 5'5" height. She's got dark white hair that's starting that she keeps in this top knot at the top of her head, but like even though she's only like in her late 20s, she's got like patches where her hair is starting to gray. So she's got the streaks of the darker gray peppering through her hair as well. Her most notable physical feature are these sets of thick glasses, one of which is a normal colored lens, the other one of which is a rose colored lens that has a little mechanism by it that allows her to pop it in and out of place. And she is currently dressed also in like a nice little cream colored button up, has a little bow tie on, and is wearing more like cargo pants and like heavy boots, and is probably somewhere walking in the middle of this pack, and deferring to the expertise of her teammates as we start to trek deeper into plant territory.
Zyrea, just, chop the poison away when you're chopping.
What does it look like?
I'll attempt to point out. Is it just all the plants or
Everything.
Everything's
poison?
poison.
Everything. It's all poisonous. First, you suspect that it might not be as simple as just chopping away poisonous bits. But you are most suspicious of the crawling vines, just from familiarity with a general sense of how evolution usually occurs on planets like this. But that doesn't mean that you're confident about all the others. You are specifically avoiding the areas, or you would probably specifically avoid the areas where you don't see signs of a lot of grazing, right? So these plants that are crawling up have berries, yellow and green berries, which is a little unusual against these purple leaves, and those are probably the ones you'd point out.
Okay, I'll say, well, those crawling vine ones and those ones, and don't forget those ones especially.
All right, Bob.
You just pointed in a general direction and said everything was bad.
You asked, so
I
There
didn't,
we
but thank
are.
you for telling me.
Also, Zyrea, it's very important that Celeste is in charge of this mission.
this
Uh,
is factual. Commander?
Oh, that's right. I forgot who our commander was for this one.
That's fine. I think Celeste is
I
also
think the characters
canonically.
also forgot.
Guys, we've been playing this game for 2 months.
Is there any indication of maybe and this is partially Kristen trying to remember from last session's perception checks, which were 2 months ago, what could be has anybody noticed what we could consider maybe an animal path that's commonly traversed by the local fauna of the plant that might be a safer route?
Yeah, you can make those checks. You can make that either using xenophysiology because you're aware of where a animal might travel, and then you can check for those paths, or just straight perception.
Cool.
Can anyone make them?
Go ahead and make them. I can be cued if you have ranks in it.
I have ranked both of those.
Everybody
I'm
has ranks in
trainable.
xenophysiology. We
I know.
literally all do.
I know,
No.
but
Well,
Oh, is
the
it
actual
not?
scientists.
It's fine. I have 2 ranks in physiology, but it's only a +2 because that's an intelligence base score, and my intelligence is 7.
I
I
also.
Hey, it's an 18.
Hey,
I will roll
you
highest
say
in
you
this
crit
game
that?
at one point.
Kristen, did you crit that?
I crit failed.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
The opposite.
I mean, you did crit.
Good.
So starting with the highest here, looks like that's Vito. Vito, you are noticing a clear pathway in, but you kind of guess that you would be the one who could use it. The others, especially Zyrea, will have to hunch if they take that pathway. But that's fine. It's going to be a full walkway for you. But that also means that whatever traveled through that pathway is probably about your size or just a little larger. For the rest of y'all, I think under 18, under 20, you notice little paths, but nothing that seems especially useful. Kristen, with your anxiety kind of accumulating, you have this moment remembering that, back in the briefing room when you were being told about the unusual things happening and the sense of hysteria, you're feeling a little bad, but you remember that the psychologist who normally treats and provides materials to the group, you remember that little smile he gave you as he patted where you keep your inhaler on his own chest. And that's all you get from that check. You don't notice anything except your own feet.
I think
Actually,
as Celeste starts to feel this panic starts to build up, she's got like these giant pockets on her cargo pants, and she's like fumbling around trying to get at her anxiety meds now. She's like, I think this might be building into a panic attack. Maybe because there's nowhere for me to go and we're trapped.
Celeste would get something else. Celeste's smart slab would kind of like beep or whatever tone it's on. And if she were to investigate that, Vito would have quickly described what Vito saw, but would not speak up.
Celeste, as she's fumbling then for the anxiety meds in one pocket, like she pulls them out, feels the buds, drops her meds everywhere, but goes for the smart slab, and will glance at Vito. Oh, okay. I want to give due credit where due credit is due. Oh, I said that too many times. And Vito has indicated to me that there might be a hunchable path for all of us. She turns to Vito. If you could like point that out for the rest of the group as well, that would be really amazing.
Vito, who's in the middle of picking up Celeste's medicine off the ground, like point over towards like the little hole.
As you do that, Vito, one of the did they spill as pills or did they spill as a bottle?
To honor the nat one that didn't have anything to do with this, it's the pills that have spilled everywhere.
One of the pills you're reaching for, Vito, just a tendril, a pale yellow tendril, snakes around it 3 or 4 times the way a creeping vine does when it's sitting on a fence, but it does so as you watch and just pulls it back into the undergrowth, roughly along the path that, like away from that little burrow that you were going to cross through.
So the weird tentacle thing didn't go into the burrow; it went away from the burrow.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Vito kind of just went to grab it, did kind of like the hands up in the air, like, okay.
Celeste, how do you spell your name?
Celeste.
I just wanted to make sure that I was getting it right for the standard report for the mission.
You watch Celeste sag just a little bit because she knows. Well, I'll make an understanding check there. Actually, I will self-check myself. Fun little. That was a 14. Do I get what's happening now?
I think that you know Quad enough to know that Quad has filled one of these out for every mission that she's ever done, and like does take it seriously. But she also does know how to spell your name because you're friends theoretically.
I think the fact that Celeste or that Quad has like made a point to let Celeste know that there is a write-up happening about her right now causes Celeste to sag just a little bit. And she takes another deep breath and goes, okay, Vito, you found the path, you lead the way, we'll follow your lead for now.
But some of you gonna have to kind of drop a squat a little bit to get through here. You see Vito reach into his jumpsuit, pull out the pistol, and just like cowboy walk into the burrow.
We're all wearing comfortable clothes, right? I'm getting down, hands and knees, crawling. Sounds like a you problem.
Normally Quad will be second in line to Zyrea as the two like front-facing fighters of the group. Given that to Quad, I'm pretty sure she thinks Celeste and Selmac both are liabilities in fights. But we'll dart in front of Zyrea so that she is closer to the front, knowing that Zyrea is going to have more trouble in this space.
You know, I think I'm going to go last. It's going to take me a minute.
front of Zyrea, but behind
She will
is-
sheath her sword and start trying to like she can still move in her armor, but it just takes her a minute to get down properly so she can actually like bend her knees well, and yeah, it's a struggle.
Have I written the correct marching order in the channel? Is it Vito, Quad, Celeste, Selmac, and Zyrea?
Sounds
Yeah, I
right.
think so.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Just checking. No reasons. All right. So as you pass into this tunnel, it has like all the characteristic signs. 4 out of 5 of you notice immediately, little areas where the sides have kind of been brushed away from passage. You in particular notice, Selmac, that there are still fewer signs of herbivorous predation than you would expect. These plants are not being eaten that much, and where they are, it looks more like it's been from insectivores, or I mean insect-like creatures. And as you do so, you actually see that little bird light on to one of these little vines as you pass through. As you're traveling, it gets slowly a little darker as you go deeper and deeper into this jungle space. And the moisture in the air kind of increases as you get further along. Go ahead and Vito, you're at the front.
Yes.
Go ahead and make a perception check for me.
Oh, is that the wrong channel?
It happens. Did you send it in the infinite though?
No, it's what I almost did.
Oh, okay. Just dice switching in some other Discord entirely.
23.
Awesome. Yeah, so you eventually notice that there are a couple of branching pathways. You might have missed them because of the way that they kind of narrow off. You would expect the branching pathways aren't always taken, and so you have a couple of options ahead of you. One is taking you back mostly in the direction that you came, like at a perpendicular, and then the other seems to go further towards that. Y'all, as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, had decided to head to the nearest sort of elevated ziggurat sort of structure, and you wanted to pass. You saw what might have been a road or a wall, and you wanted to pass along that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it looks from here like it would be in that general direction. But again, it's an animal path that you're following, so who knows?
Vito would stop slightly at this kind of like, they said it was 3, right? Where does the other one go? The one that seems to loop back around, crossing that one out. The other 2, one keeps going in the direction we've been going. Where does the other one go?
You're not sure. It
Okay.
seems to, you think it would probably be a dead end if you travel that way. And the reason you think it'd be a dead end is because you've been taking, kind of like paying attention to the trees and stuff, and it looks kind of like it's going into a burrow. You've got signs that there are, like little dead creatures, right? Little bones, stuff like that.
There's a few pathways up here. This one looks like it kind of loops back around. The other one has literal dead things in it, so let's just keep going this way.
Sure, great. I'll
Get
pass
on
that
it.
along. Quad is like, could probably be far more comfortable, but is trying to walk, like, and hunch down to still be using her smarts lab. She's not doing the mission report anymore. She's back to her maths bullshit. But is very like uncomfortable and says, "Can you see like a metaphorical light at the end of the tunnel?"
Vito stares into the ever-growing darkness.
Not
Sorry.
not on a 23.
That's gonna be a negative.
Could have just okay. You hear a little smart slab beep.
Vito will keep going.
All right. Does the rest of the party just keep following Vito into this endless burrow tunnel sort of location?
Yes.
Also-
Yes.
Yes, we don't have.
Didn't I forgot to write it down? Didn't Vito have a racial thing to where he can't, or like not racial, but like a feat, the starting feature thing that characters have? Isn't his that he can't be surprised? Did we decide on that? Was it the alert thing?
Sure.
I forgot.
I don't remember what the decision was for your background feat, but if you don't have one written down, that sounds fine.
Yeah. And how can you remind me the difference? Because we had that conversation. What's the difference between surprise in 5e and surprise in?
Surprised isn't a condition in 5e. If you don't roll initiative until both sides are in the fight.
Got it. All right. So as y'all continue, presumably just moving with the intent to pass this area of poisonous plants, and to get closer to your final destination. I'm sorry. I'm doing physical dice this time. Go ahead and give me perception checks. And
Oh,
specifically, I want from Vito and from the person in the back. I don't remember who that is.
Zyrea.
Zyrea.
I just rolled a d20 to see how well she was doing getting through.
I'll
She
fail
struggled
on
busing.
purpose.
Yeah,
my
Quad's
smart
not paying
slab.
attention.
That's a
Yeah.
hot 9 from Zyrea. She's gotten her sword has kind of like the handle has kind of gotten stuck on like a branch, so she's kind of like it's trying to like jiggle it free, and it's just not working. So she's more focused on trying to like unstick herself from this foliage.
22 again for Vito.
That's perfect. Zyrea, go ahead and make a strength check to remove your sword.
Okay. It's a straight strength check.
Let me give it. Let me give a better
Kinematics,
choice
probably.
there.
I say it would be
Kinematics. Yeah.
Kinematics. Okay. That is a +8.
Uses brawl in the undergrowth.
Yeah. I mean, you could make it as a brawl if you
I
would
rolled
like.
a natural 7, but it's 15, so.
Excellent. So you are in a stalemate with this removing your sword from the undergrowth. Because I also, you're in a stalemate. Vito, something, the soft white hairs that form that faint handlebar mustache, just they feel like they pricked up a little bit. You. Yeah, you've got just a sense, a familiar sense that there's something going on.
That's the background feat. It's the mustache. It's just like a spider sense mustache.
God, I love Vito so much.
Why did we make these our main game characters, you guys?
I would explode play Celeste every week.
Yeah. Selmac, go ahead and make your perception check. Yeah. And make it with advantage. Because you are right in front of. Perfect, thank you.
Vito's thing.
It's Vito, he does his thing. Did that come through?
Is it Andrew we're waiting for to roll?
Yeah, I think we're on Andrew.
You're fine. I just wasn't sure if I had said it while not on mute.
I like the idea that Selmac fails this with advantage and is just listening to music.
Yeah. Well,
He's
there's a
trying-
reason for the advantage.
He's working on
I know you.
Zyrea's walk-up song.
The skill again?
Perception. I know that you were doing something else, but there's a reason for.
Like, I typed that
It's been
syntax
pulled into the
incorrectly.
undergroup.
9. Or the best I'm gonna get all day.
This is
Poetic.
Yeah, everything seems fine. Selmac, you continue moving. Zyrea, your sword is still in the undergrowth. Vito, you know something is wrong, but have no further
Yep.
information.
Very dark.
Vito would stop and kind of like is not willing to turn his back to the where he was currently walking, but knowing that Quadrissia is directly behind him, we'll say in a fairly flat, and if we said that Quadrissia and Vito have gone on enough missions, right?
Yeah.
Vito slips into work, basically, and just immediately upon stopping, something up ahead. Not sure what it is yet.
Quad nods and her smart slab kind of disappears into a pocket of her jumpsuit, and she turns to Celeste and just puts a finger up to stop Celeste saying anything, and says, "Vito says there's something up ahead. Just stay calm. Pass it on to Selmac. Then tell Zyrea."
Celeste nods, will click the mechanism on the right lens of her glasses so that the rose-colored lens slips up, and will pull out her smart slab and text the rest of the group in the group chat.
You hear
Okay, so that
Quad's
takes a second longer than speaking would, and I'm gonna ask Zyrea, take another check, strength check.
How'd you get this sword so tangled?
Hey, it's a dirty 20.
You successfully haul your sword out from the undergrowth. And moment. All right, yeah, carry on, y'all.
I'm
Damn it.
rolling an understanding check to see if Quad notices that Celeste is typing a message and mutes her smart slab in time.
Okay. What was the exact message again?
Something up ahead, stay quiet.
Vito's smart slab tone is a cowbell.
God darn it!
Quad got hers muted, and then hears a cowbell behind her, and there's just a look of such defeat on her face.
It would be in front
Of just
of you.
like, no, she's facing Celeste now.
Oh, right.
So she's like,
You hear the
this,
ding of a wrestling bell coming distantly from Zyrea's smart slab.
there's just
As
this.
Celeste, like,
Yeah.
all
Actually, yes.
Watch out!
It is absolutely the do. Yep.
like you see Celeste like pinch the bridge of her nose as she's thinking to herself, it is in the guidelines that you're supposed to have your smart slabs on silent for these missions for this purpose.
Mac just waves, having not got any noise from their smart slab.
Vito believed that he had put his on silent, but he had only turned the volume up.
Quad like leans.
Can I ask a question? Oh, go ahead.
Quad leans towards Celeste, and it's not like a mean thing or sneering or anything, and just says, I'm not going to include this. And you just hear like a hiss as her spear turns on, and she turns back around to whatever Vito's dealing with.
Vito, still not turning around completely, Edith's just like, what is it nowadays with the message? I mean, we can just talk.
Celeste holds her tongue. Because in theory, texting is supposed to be quieter when the message is supposed to be stay quiet.
Has this like communication gone on? Is the group making any special pains to remain like coherently grouped, or are y'all just traveling at your speed pace. Because Zyrea was like wrestling for a whole.
Yeah,
I
Vito
think
would be
she would've-
moving at a.
she'd-
Good.
She probably fell behind a little bit because she was wrestling with her own sword in the underbrush.
I was gonna say that Vito probably wouldn't move super fast to give people enough time to stay together.
Also,
Vito
because of Vito.
Yeah, Vito ain't no hurry.
Selmac is like literally as close as you can get to Celeste without it being annoying.
Quad is trying to make sure that she can see both Celeste and Vito at all times, but does get distracted by the smart slab, which she doesn't bring back out now that Vito has said something is up ahead.
Okay. So yeah, as y'all continue through, Vito, you've slowed down a little. You're looking carefully, and just up ahead is the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel that you were being asked about just a moment before. You can see the sunlight is streaming through branches. That this area has kind of opened up, and with your general, I'm going to say just your general combination of your perception and your sommelier skills, you can smell water. Quad, you can also probably, just from familiarity, like as your physiology adjusts back and forth to the level of hydration in the air, you are aware that there is water just up ahead.
Is it salt water? Can I tell?
It does not seem like salt water. Are you trying to tell just if it's salt water, or are you trying to tell a little bit more about it? You can go ahead and make it.
No, she's like, her home planet is mostly salt water, or like some version of salt water. So when she can't catch that like light salt smell in the air, even though she feels like her skin probably becoming slightly more comfortable as the hydration in the air improves, she like scrunches her nose a little bit at fresh water because it's not normal for her.
You're going to step out into a fairly decent looking watering hole. There's no sign of the poisonous plants from before. The vines crawling up, the flowers and the leaves themselves are shaped a little bit differently. There is, in fact, what appears to be it's midway between a watering hole and a fountain. There is stone around it. The stone is the first thing you've seen here, except from afar, that looks cultivated, right? Somebody has laid this down and put it into a kind of like an aesthetically pleasing sort of layout, but it's still around what it seems to be a very like natural watering hole. Zyrea, as you are the last to step out of that little hollow that you just traveled through, go ahead and make me one last perception check. And I apologize, but the dice didn't like y'all today.
Never catch me apologizing when dice don't like you.
It's a whole
I
zoo
know.
behind us.
Another 9.
Oh.
I rolled a 4 again.
Okay. So as you feel once more your sword caught in the undergrowth, go ahead and give me that strength check. And everybody, what are y'all doing?
Sorry, go ahead, Vito first.
Okay. I was gonna say Vito entered into the watering hole space doing the like check every corner like pistol walk. At still feeling something kind of feels off. But will not go super far ahead, and we're more so kind of like maintain the entrance as more people start to file in.
I think there's a moment where it like pans out from Vito doing that, and Quad is like watching Vito's back with her spear pointed in that direction. And they've done this before where they've just like breached into a new area and checked for like problems and targets, and she is very comfortable just following Vito and making sure that when he is facing in one direction, she's watching the other way.
Selmac, what are you? Oh, go ahead. No,
Sorry.
go ahead, Celeste.
I think so. Marching order.
Yeah,
Celeste is
you're right.
Count are coming in.
Okay. So Celeste is also watching towards the back?
Yeah, so making sure that every person in the group is accounted for and looks normal.
Selmac is, now that we're like in a bit, like studying the plants to see if they're any different or if they're mostly the same. I think it sounds like we've walked a bit of ways.
Okay, so you're cataloging the plants in the watering hole itself?
Yeah, just kind of looking to see if anything new or interesting.
All
You
right.
sort of walk. You probably would have heard Zyrea muttering under her breath again, frustration at getting stuck once more
No,
in the foliage.
He did not notice. Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Zyrea is if Zyrea is taking like a little bit longer than one would expect to like get out of the underbrush, Celeste will like once Selmac gets out, will go in as well, back in as well to check on things.
I don't think Zyrea has fallen quite that far behind because it was only like a 6-second delay, right, earlier. So it's more like as you're turning around and looking to index people, and Zyrea is making this like massive pull at this sword to bring it out of the underbrush. Both Quadrissia and Zyrea and Celeste see this just enormously long, grasping tendril. And Vito, if you were looking in this direction, you would recognize it as the big cousin to the thing that took the pill earlier. Just reaching for the sword and pulling on it before, as Zyrea just kind of uses that blade to just pull it free. And then it recoils and snaps back. Vito, this did not help your sense of concern, but you're not looking right now. Vito, what you see is a open watering hole. You notice that while the undergrowth around it is almost like in a semi-spherical, kind of like, I wouldn't say quite orb because it doesn't close over the top entirely, but a little bit like those little wooden gardens that you see where they've like taken the like there's like trellises almost, right, that are made out of natural vines. It feels a little bit like that on all sides. But around the fountain area, you do notice that there is a faint pathway.
Like a well-treaded pathway.
You're not sure if it's like been well-treaded pathway, but it's been used and it looks like it descends. Like it looks like it's a stairwell.
I think Quad, who watched Zyrea's sword nearly get taken by a giant tentacle, Zyrea probably looks up and Quad's just like aiming the spear directly at you.
God, what the hell?
No. And she like beckons for you to come closer.
So walk forward.
I'm looking for the tentacle to see if it's like reaching out for Zyrea again.
Go ahead.
No.
You do see movement in the pathway that you just traveled. And as you're looking at this point, you don't need intense perception to see that there's a sort of ripple in the pathway that you went along the walls. There's movement in the grass or in the vines.
Quad looks at Celeste and says, "If there's a thing in there, why weren't we interesting to it?"
Celeste is now going to call. I think this might be Selmac's area of expertise, so perhaps we call him over and ask him why he didn't warn us about the sentient plants and only warned us about the poisonous ones. Those two things are not the same.
Well, for one thing, nobody's ever encountered these plants before, so I possibly have known. I'll give him a look over now, like seeing them being a moving plant and try to glean more info if I can.
Sure, go ahead and give me that roll.
Actually, No, I'll do the roll first.
Okay. Did you have something else you'd like to do? I don't want to box you
I
in.
was thinking about doing psychic stuff, but I think I want to make the roll first. Yeah, terrible.
So remind me what you were specifically looking for again, as I.
So I'm looking to see if, now that they're moving and whatnot, like, do I get the sense that these plants are? I think my main thing is like, are these carnivorous plants that are, sentient, or are they sentient even, or are they just moving and like? That's kind of his line of thought.
Okay. Given the fact that you just have like the vague movements of vines to work with, you don't have a lot to go on. You don't think confidently that they're sentient, but it does seem a little odd that you would have been allowed to travel through, like Celeste or like Quad said.
Think that I'm not sure that they are sentient per se, but it would seem strange to a sentient plant would let us pass on without any interference.
I would say this is a situation where we don't look a gift horse in the mouth. However, this is our route back to the ship.
Quad chuckles a bit and says, well, unless things go so drastically wrong that we have to get back to the ship from somewhere else.
I guess we did not investigate routes that were going in the opposite direction of where we wanted to go. I would really like to avoid making giant loops on an unknown planet, but that is a good point.
Would you like me to investigate this water in this fountain?
Vito would lean over to Quad whenever they say that. It's like there's some stairs around it, by the way. They go down.
Quad will pull out like a couple of vials and then a long piece of metal that she can loop around one of the vials to like get some water into a little test tube. She like puts in a little compound to see if she can work out what the makeup is of the water, but while also looking down the stairs while she's waiting for it to finish.
Got it. So you're testing just the one vial of water and holding on to the second for further testing, or testing both?
I have no, I only picked up one vial of water. She has a bunch of vials. I only picked up one to see like what's in it mainly. How poisonous might this be to the average person?
Got it. And the compound you chose is just like focused on poison. Is it how like it's a quick acting, takes a couple of minutes sort of thing, or is it a color indicator?
That it changes the color if it contains high enough composition of like the 5 most deadly things that can be found in water-like substances. Because I think Quad has done a lot of stuff with water and also has a +12 to theoretical science.
Okay, excellent. So, as you observe these like progressive color changes that tell you whether or not something is to be concerned about, there's no like high or low pH. It looks close to 7. It looks roughly fresh. From what you can tell, salinity levels are not high. You don't see any evidence of metabolic actions occurring, right? There's no like crazy amount of protists or bacteria in this water. There's a little bit, as you would expect, and you can kind of tell that just looking at it anyway. It's fairly clear, but there's a little bit of a silty fog. And there's dirt at the bottom of the fountain. It's not been, so maintained that it's being cleaned out regularly. There's no, there's a little bit of leaf litter, that kind of thing, and so it would make sense that you'd have that color change that indicates something's going on there, but not enough that you're concerned about coming into contact with it.
She quickly, as the color is changing, logs the differences and then pours out most of the water, but not all of it, and stoppers the vial with it's like essentially it's like a Glad wrap that she places a disc of it on top and it adheres to the glass, and then she tosses that into the fountain, using the air inside it to remain buoyant, so that she can see if anything happens to it from being in there for a long time, and if they come back out and it's gone, she will know that something has like interacted with it.
Nice.
But
Anybody
we'll then
else want to?
Yeah.
Go
If it happens quickly enough, she'll just turn around and go, well, that's just water. Not water that you should drink, but
Do you
maybe use Zyrea.
Okay.
have a quick question? Iron Gut Zyrea. If we saw bones on the opposite path, going off somewhere, like small animal bones, usually if it was somewhat fresh, there would be a bit of a smell. I don't know if that's something that Vito might be able to pick up on, but he's been around enough decay, I'll say, to know the scent. Is there anything like that hanging in the air, or is it still pretty fresh air? Just very
Your
humid.
passive perception is like the highest in the group, I think, right? You're like at a 16 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that plus, you smell the water. You smell this vegetation. You smell that slight, like, almost mildewy scent that happens when something is sitting in water for a long time. Specifically, you also smell from that like underground pathway. You smell not decay, but that kind of cold staleness of a zone that doesn't get as much ventilation as it would if it were above ground or have windows in, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And you also don't feel like you did scent those bones back where you were at, and that scent is not here now. Like you scented that warren, and this is not the scent.
Which also, whenever Quadrissia went up to the fountain, Vito would make sure to stay at least like 15 feet near her.
Where do you think these stairs lead?
Whenever Quadrissia has that, you see Vito, like, kind of like pans over to Vito, kind of like leaning over the hole and just kind of like just tasting the air, like over the hole. Where they're like, "Oh, I got no ventilation down there. That's musty as shit." Underground, quite a ways.
Quad nods and gives Vito a smile of appreciation for the information, and then just turns to the captain of this mission.
We can go down it. That is certainly one way to check.
Yeah, Quad will take any leadership afforded to her and starts to walk down.
Zyrea will
That's-
follow Quad with her sword out.
As Vito is kind of following after that, he will kind of turn it over to Selmac. Oh yeah, meant to mention before, I don't know if you had noticed or not, but during one of those pathways, there was some like animal bones and stuff, pretty fresh. So something in there was snacking on something.
Let's head into the dank hall. I could say like 5 things and just drive people crazy.
Your inflection is just really satisfying.
I wonder if Quad heard that.
Okay, so we're heading into another dank hall, but let me just clarify.
A taller one, right?
Everyone looked at you for leadership.
No, I just need to I just want to do some clarifying points for Kristen, not for Celeste.
Okay.
So the way that we decided my background ability would work is that I could spend a PowerPoint and then sub my genomancy score for a perception check as we're going down this hole. In the going down, is that, or
as far as we are to understand, the stairs do in fact lead underground.
Yes.
No, what I'm asking is it like in my head what I'm picturing is like a spiraling thing going down, or is it like more of a gradual?
No, it's a spiral, kind of like circling what this fountain. Like if this fountain is like at the top, right? This is going around that. But you're not quite sure.
It's an unnecessary set piece from Resident Evil.
Cool.
It actually might be that. Yes. Hey, y'all, the one that I mean, there is an entire world around you too. But
yeah.
Okay. So
can I go ahead and make just do a genomancy perception check going into the hole?
I'm assuming that is a Jack approved skill because I don't remember anything about how we decided these skills.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't care. Have whatever skill you like at this point. I'll veto it if it's relevant to my game.
You'll veto it?
Sure.
We someone about this.
Yeah. It sounds right to me. Like it sounds not a broken thing.
Okay, cool. So 15 plus 13, so it's a 28 for that.
Jeez. Do this all the time.
Yeah, I don't have enough PowerPoints for that. Or I guess I do, but some of those are my hit points.
Tell me that number again.
28 total.
Oh yeah, 28 total. Okay, and so you are just perceiving into the darkness using your special rose-colored glass.
Or removing the rose-colored glass is what keeps things from being input all the time. Removing that allows her to see with like her actual like modified implant.
Okay. So as you look down into this darkness, are you just trying to see like what awaits you? Because I want to make this useful, but also it's a spiraling stair. So as you kind of like look down into this darkness, it appears to be cut out of that same sort of stone that you saw structures made out of above ground. The stairs themselves do not appear to be that same stone entirely. There's like the walls are that stone, but these are wooden. There are like gaps in between. And you can see at least 70 feet down of just this tread going down and down into the darkness. And at like the edge of where your vision stops, you notice that the little symbols that kind of denote structures, your uncontrolled vision is what we described it as right before. Your genomancy skill gives you properties, but you can't choose what property you notice.
Right.
You notice specifically that the property that kind of tells you, oh, this is a porous stone that was produced by some sort of volcanic activity in the past. It's, got a heavy mineral deposit, etc. You notice a sudden transition, and that transition appears to be a manufactured material. You just have that kind of like regularity that you associate in these numbers with something that was made. And that's what your eye tells you.
Cool. A clarifying point from the previous session as well. We were speculating that this was an inhabited planet, but even like looking at the structures from like afar and like huge dome, we couldn't quite confirm whether or not that was actually like an intelligently built design or like a natural phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. And Zyrea was pretty confident that these were stadiums, that this was meant to show somebody's skill. But for the most part, y'all weren't certain. You didn't have information on it. But now as you look at this, not only are you certain that it is manufactured, but the precision tolerance, you are no longer concerned that you might communicate with a non-spacefaring society, that you might communicate the existence of the Empire. This is precision machining.
So Celeste will pop the rose-colored lens back into place, and will mutter to Zyrea, I am feeling more and more confident that your assessment of the domes being stadiums are accurate. These are certainly people, or were certainly people, intelligent enough to build large and complex structures for community enjoyment.
Yes. Maybe I can take my wrestling tour here.
Hear Vito a little bit up at the front. Spacefaring, couldn't they invent a fucking elevator?
Oh, now
I mean-
the exercise is good for you.
As
Scathing
y'all are
look.
discussing this,
Scathing look. You know?
Quad's at the
Maybe-
front and is just like, what are people, why is this appropriate for while we're walking into this space?
Is there a
Maybe the
handrail?
well-
Vito's looking for a
Actually,
handrail.
Maybe that was an elevator at some point.
Under a fountain.
It's evolved to look like a fountain to us over time, perhaps.
But
Underwater elevators exist.
Yeah.
They
um,
swimming is not easy for anything. Being able to not swim is useful.
Why would you put under a fountain though?
I have a question. Where is everyone? These people just died out?
I think that's one of the things we're hoping to discover while we're here. Incidentally, while we save the rest of our crew.
Who we may or may not have to kill because they may be so far gone.
Can I see if I can find
As you
any... Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead and tell me what you're trying to find first.
I wanted to
That's
look for like a port of some kind. If it's all precision machining, do they have any electronics anywhere?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the assumption that y'all hadn't yet gone down, that Celeste was looking from above to see what...
Celeste
No,
said.
we've
Celeste
we've
was
gone
like.
We've like
Celeste made an open question. I
Okay,
asked
so y'all
Celeste-
already started moving.
Yeah,
and Celeste was
Celeste
just looking
seemed
down
to leave it
as
up
you
to
were going
me.
down. Okay.
And Quad was like, "I take leadership now. I am the
Okay.
captain now."
It seemed like
Okay.
the new order wasn't it Quad, Zyrea, Celeste, Vito, and then Selmac was at the
I think I'm
back.
in the back now. Yeah,
Yep.
great.
Yeah, that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Fantastic.
Uh,
That's not a terrible decision.
that is a choice. Hold on. I need to put that back down again because that's not something I can monitor at the same time that I'm
Just put it
trying
in
to
order
monitor
of
all the other things.
competency.
I can do
Okay.
that if you want.
So we got Quad, and then Selmac's at the end.
Yeah.
And then in between Quad and Selmac, we have Vito, Celeste, Zyrea? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Order of competency. Quad,
Wait.
Zyrea, you three. Oh
Wait,
no,
no,
Vito's in the
other-
wrong spot.
Other way around. Switch with Zyrea and Vito. Then we're good.
All right. That's very good. I'm glad that resolved in that order because the other resolution order would have not made sense, and it would have felt unnecessarily punishing. So,
Okay.
you as your like I completely screwed up with my understanding, so I was making rolls that are not relevant. Okay, got it. Thank you. Appreciate the edit there. You're looking for a port, Selmac. The rest of you are monitoring your situation.
So
While walking.
Right. While walking. And so you're just descending further into the darkness. It keeps getting darker. Before you can find what would appear to be a port, before you have like a spot where you'd like maybe stop at a landing, expecting that kind of thing. As you just go down these spiral wooden staircase. It's getting progressively darker. But as you're presumably kind of running hands along, you don't need a perception check to see that there are kind of lights where there would be lights embedded into this metal sheer wall on either side of you. And your engineering skill? Remind me, Andrew.
I don't have any engineering.
Okay,
I
your focus is not it's in
Computers.
audio
I'm
engineering,
looking
not
for
engineering.
computers.
Okay, got it. You work for computers, etc. So you know enough to know that like if there's a port, there is going to be some sort of like physical obstruction on the wall or something that kind of makes it obvious that this is where you could stop and like connect into whatever systems are there.
Yeah.
But you haven't gotten to a point where it feels like that. You're just descending.
Yep.
And you're about 70 feet down because that's where you would have started to notice the metal.
If it's getting so dark that we can't really see, then I think Quad stops for a moment and turns to Zyrea. Zyrea, if it's so dark that you can't see, you kind of feel Quad's hand against roughly where your stomach would be to stop you, and says, I'm gonna use a torch. And as Quad just gets her smart slab and turns on the torch function.
Yeah. And so this torch comes, vivid white light and illuminates the space around you. So the central column of the staircase that you're going through is still stone. The outside is metallic. And into the stone are inset these kind of like rough-hewn stairs made out of a wood that is quite similar to what you kept seeing in the woody plants above. And there are tread marks as you're going down. There's this staircase has been used, and it's been used recently. The prints, the zone of wear is a little bit small, smaller than any of your feet, including Vito's. Though I don't know roughly the size of Vito's feet relative to his body size.
Minuscule.
Size 3, child.
Okay, all right. Well, they're a little bit larger than Vito's feet as he walks around on his tiny little Charlie feet.
How wide is the staircase? Is it 2 people wide or 1 person?
It's comfortably 2 people wide. You have not had like your elbows have not been hitting anything. But the treads themselves are definitely not OSHA approved. They feel a little too narrow. They feel a little too short.
I think Quad had been ahead of Zyrea up to that point, but like waits for Zyrea to land on her step and then just falls in beside Zyrea, so we're walking together.
Zyrea's kind of walking a little bit at an angle, so she can kind of step down the stairs, like kind of sideways because her feet are too fucking big for these stairs.
Quad is kind of occasionally hiding a smile behind her hand. Like, as much as she is irritated by some aspects of this mission, she does just enjoy getting to not be on the ship and hang out with Zyrea.
As y'all walking, you do come to that landing, and at just a little too low for your comfort level height, you do find that port that you've been looking for. It doesn't seem to be compatible with anything that you currently have. But it is a port. There is access, and it clearly leads into like the way that you could tell on the wall. It leads into some kind of system.
Got technology, folks.
If Selmac says that out loud, just sort of in general to the group, Celeste will stop, let Vito pass by her, and will stand next to Selmac on the stairwell.
We're in a landing. I was not clear about that. Sorry.
Yes, you have technology. Could you provide some clarifying information there? What do you want me to check out?
I found excuse me, Captain. I found a port, but I can't connect to it. But perhaps one of you might be able to do something. You're more hardware-minded.
Sure. So when you say port, like what? Celeste will go and investigate it. Is the long and short of that.
So you see a dead screen. It's not powered up. It is embedded against the wall a little bit lower than what would be standard height on the Variance. Next to it is a series of depressions that look a little bit like buttons. they're not laid out in a keypad format. They're just like along the side. Same thing on the other side. It looks a little bit like some sort of Internet of Things garbage that has just been like pasted into this, but it's very clean, right? It's been just like the stairwells. It's been used recently,
Mhm.
and it's been like swiped away, right? Like the dust that you should have expected to accumulate on this surface that is a little stickier than sheer metal isn't really there.
Mhm.
There is a little area next to it where you could plug in some kind of device. But again, it's some random planet's technology. You could probably figure out a way to interface with it if you chose to get it turned on.
Okay, so it's not powered on. Is there any indication as to like, is there like an additional port that is immediately obvious as like a charging port as opposed to like an interfacing place?
So you're trying to get power to the system.
Yes.
Um,
And well, I guess I'll let you answer the question that I was going to ask, but I had a follow-on action here before things happen.
Okay.
Mhm.
So yes, so that first question, you don't see anything visible for providing power. You suspect that if you were going to have a sort of power interface, right, that it would be coming from the wall to the device, that you wouldn't be using a portable device to power the wall itself. But there's no like real attempt to hide this because maintenance needs access now and then, and so you see that there is a seam along the side of where those buttons lay where you could like pop something out and perhaps gain access to the wiring behind it to accomplish that goal.
Mm-hmm. So okay. Rearranging how I wanted to do this then. Celeste is a good little engineer and has her toolkits, like her where is mine right now? Has her toolkit on her right now, and we'll pull out approach the panel, and we'll pull out a like a flathead screwdriver, and we'll pop that into the crevice, and we'll like attempt to leverage that out.
Yeah. It is unnervingly easy, actually. Normally you have to wrestle with these kinds of things, but as you pop it out, the little tab that would hold it into place that should like kind of give you a little bit of resistance has been bent out of shape by whoever last accessed it. It just like swings open, and you see wires fairly neatly organized, but there's a couple of places where they've been clipped out and like bent into shape and twisted back into place. So your immediate sense of it just as an engineer is like, if I left something that I wanted to re-access, like, oh, I can do this immediately. I can immediately provide power once more to this system. Somebody has done this before you. Is anybody else doing anything as Celeste is working through this?
Zyrea would be are there any doors on this landing at all, or
there's a
what did
place that
keep
you
him
would
watched?
suspect. Yeah.
And Celeste would have called Quadrissia over just to have a second set of eyes.
There's more stairs going past the landing, right?
Right. This stairwell just keeps going on.
Yeah.
While everyone's doing that, Vito would be standing where the stairs keep going down, but is still level with the landing. It's just kind of keeping post there.
Is his head level with the landing, or is he on the landing?
He's on the landing, but just facing where the stairs
Looking
are going
down.
down. Yeah.
Zyrea is swiveling back and forth between looking back at the stairs up the way they came and also down over where Vito is.
Quite probably stopped and turned around when Selmac mentioned technology in general, what with being the preeminent scientist on this mission. But while Celeste is doing the stuff in the wall, would have asked Selmac, do you have some idea of what kind of cable you'd need to interface?
It's not a port that I've ever seen before.
Then she just goes and watches what Celeste is doing, taking this time to update her mission report.
Right. So, Celeste, as you continue to interface with this, are you going to go ahead and attempt to provide power, or do you have another plan in mind?
So Celeste is actually just generally taking stock of the collection of wires, because regardless or irrespective of how well organized they are, they would appear well organized to what she perceives as like a way to organize cables, and that's not a universal thing. So electricity is electricity. Electrons will flow as electrons do. It doesn't matter what planet you're on. The laws of physics and the laws of chemistry are the laws of physics and chemistry. But I don't want to start plugging things into different things without someone else checking my work.
Yeah, in that case, when being asked to essentially function as an expert, will go and double check everything that Celeste is saying, and presuming it lines up, will say that.
Yeah, like, it's hard to know if you're not following a specific standard, but as the two of you are observing this, it seems unlikely that you are going to, blow each other off of this landing by misconnecting the wrong wire. And you're both experts enough to know that you can basically set up a temporary breakaway, right? So that if you do overload whatever you're attempting here, that it's not going to be too much of an issue.
Does Quad have an extra fuse that we can put into the system?
Yeah. Quad has a bunch of random parts and things, and will since she thought she was going to be putting together some weird cable, she'll attempt to put together very quickly a very safe immediate off thing for if there is a problem. And she probably is prepared enough that she would have parts to make it set up so it could be triggered remotely.
Mm-hmm. So we'll insert that, and once everything looks like it's rigged up safely, and if maybe too much power starts flowing through that circuit, it'll just immediately pop on its own. Not explode, but how circuit breakers work, or watchdog circuits work. We'll do the last little connection.
What direction so you said that it can be triggered remotely. You make the connection. Are you going to attempt to trigger this remotely? Are you going to follow?
No, it can be turned off remotely. It still gets put in to the circuit, and then Celeste can connect it to the the full thing to the interface.
Right. So the idea is that I think we've put in a fail-safe.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah. Go ahead and make me an applied engineering roll with advantage. I guess y'all could use whoever scores highest. I guess that makes sense.
What's your score?
For applied engineering, a 9.
Is it Dex or Int?
It's going to be Dex for this one because you're physically engaged with it. You get 8. The bonus basically.
Mine is also an 8, and Quad is bowing to you as the leader of this mission, so you can do it. I don't have a benefit to being the one to roll this one, unlike theoretical science.
So,
Quad getting ready to write on the report if Celeste fails.
Summary with the report.
Quad is very
20. We'll call it a 27.
Yeah. 27 does it. So yeah, go ahead. So I'll just resolve this scene and then we'll Madi. So what's going to happen now is, Vito, as you're staring down at the bottom of the stairwell, you see a faint glow. Selmac, as you were looking for a port and you're kind of just waiting for the experts to do their job, you hear a kind of break in the rhythm of just this underground space where it's mostly been the clatter of your own sounds and the acoustics, right, of this zone as the echoes go up and down. That's probably been little bit interesting because you're essentially in a metal tube lined with a stone core. And there is a hissing that appears. And then you hear the kind of faint crackle that you just associate with audio systems as they come online. And the lights, Vito, continue up. The glow that everybody can see that comes from the stairwell beneath you just continues up level by level, roughly every 8 to 10 feet, until the zone that you're in just lights up, almost painfully bright, enough to like make you blink with discomfort after so much time in the darkness. And it remains that way, and it goes up and up a level above you until it is presumably at the top. But again, you can't see that anymore because that light at your level is so bright. And it stays that way for several seconds, flashing just a little bit brighter before it kind of dials back to something that's just a little bit below comfort levels. And the light is a pale, soft green. And the board in front of you, Celeste, softly whistles a little bit, chirps. The screen, a menu comes up. It's in an unfamiliar language, but it's very spiraling, very neat. This display panel looks like it could have been installed just a few years ago. It doesn't match this decrepit status of the planet.
There is, I'm maybe I am mistaken, but there does seem to be, and she's saying this at Quad, but just sort of like to herself in general, more so, a bit of a mismatch between what is happening in front of us and what we have observed prior to now. I'm wondering, there are a couple of options here. Of course, maybe we're just missing a very obvious piece of the puzzle. I'm wondering if maybe another spacefaring group maybe was here prior to us who are not native to this planet. That is one possibility among many. And she's sort of just postulating out loud all of the different potentials for like why these two stories don't seem to be adding up.
I think after the third of Quad can think of hundreds upon hundreds of reasons why this doesn't make sense. And after the third one that Celeste is getting through, just puts her hand gently on Celeste's shoulder and says, well, you know how much I like theories, but this may not be the best time to list all of them. And then she kind of turns and beckons Selmac over at the screen that has lit up. Quad doesn't really do a lot with computers, so it's like, this is your thing now.
You turn and he's there, and it's trying to use his computer knowledge to outweigh the fact that he doesn't speak this language.
It's fine.
To UI
it's just
his way through things.
Just Jeff Goldblum it. Just Jeff Goldblum it.
I have a random question that I don't know what type of check it would be.
Okay.
Vito, more so to himself, because he just heard Quad kind of like shut down any theory talk. That same kind of like unease feeling, has that mitigated any, or is it still kind of there?
I would say that your unease started to kind of settle once you had seen that vine and watched it retreat. Your unease was for that situation. Now, you still might feel uneasy, but that would be more related to the fact that you are greater than 70 feet below the surface in an uncharted experience with recent data all suggesting that people go missing on this planet.
The other thing was, does this at all seem similar to a bunker to Vito?
So as Vito contemplates whether he's in a bunker or not, we are going to cut away.
Aren't we all in a bunker, metaphorically speaking?
Yeah. We're going to cut away to whether or not we are hunkering in a bunker, and take a brief bio break. It's 11:28, so if we come back at 11:45, no, that'd be 17. Yeah, 11:45. That work for y'all? Or,
Mhm.
45 minutes past the hour, not
It's
11:45.
entirely up to you. I have found out. People will generally just nod and say yes.
Yes. Okay.
Mhm.
So 45 minutes past the hour. I'll give us a 17-minute break.
We will be back soon.
All right, the moment you said go, everything left my brain. So Chris,
there
we were
wasn't a
coming
lot to
back to your
flee.
question. There wasn't, but there was at least one thing, and it was a thought about Chris. Chris, you had last asked. Vito was thinking quietly to himself, am I in a bunker?
Mhm.
And specifically, as this light has clicked on, and you can see deep into the earth below, you might just be. You can't see any other offshoots from here of where you would go into other rooms, because of the nature of the stairwell, and because your eyes are still adjusting to this painfully bright light that has only finally now lowered to something that is sustainable. If you are in a bunker, you would expect to find evidence of use, but you still haven't heard or seen anything other than that faint pattern of feet on the treads. And also, those treads don't fit with the bunker idea. The stairwell, if this was a bunker, you would almost anticipate that stairwell to be metal as well. So it's conflicting information. Celeste, what are you doing with your new access to the system? Or actually, no, we've switched over to Selmac is working on the computer screen, right? Using his knowledge of UI.
Yeah, I wanted to attempt to do stuff, see if I could influence, like, the environment in any way, or pull up any kind of other screens.
Yeah, so as you click around, you do find your way into submenus, and it's very clear that there are buttons, right, that are headers, and that they themselves have access to submenus, and you see almost universally little slider bars. Right now, one is tilted very close to the maximum, and that slider bar has what just is like a square with beams coming out of it. And it doesn't take much for you to kind of assume that that is general lighting, because of the beams and the fact that it is bright in here. There's a variety of other slider bars, and there's a variety of toggle switches, and those seem to be in that off position, which is your other clue essentially that you are in a that is the lighting, because those other ones are not illuminated. They're actually you don't have a symbol that tells you this is off and on, but you can infer that from the lack of illumination.
Sorry, is anybody else getting an echo? Just me?
A little bit, yeah.
Little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, I have an echo.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a stream thing.
It was deeply distracting me, so but it seems gone now.
Okay, I'll turn to the others and say, can't say what this console was originally for, but it seems to mainly influence the lights.
I'm sorry, I may not have been clear as I was distracted
Maybe
by that echo. It does seem to influence a lot of things, but it currently seems to only have power being driven to the lights. You could probably influence and
Okay.
change those other settings.
I
You just don't know what
misunderstood.
those other settings will do.
The only thing I can currently affect is the lights. There seems to be other functionality, but I'm not sure if it's off or unconnected, or maybe those subsystems are simply broken.
Well, I'm of two minds here. One, we are all professionals and we're here for a particular purpose, and that would indicate that we approach with caution. However, I am an experimentalist personally, and would love to press some other buttons.
I look at Vito and say, are we on the right track still? We were supposed to be finding people.
Yeah, it's really the only first sign of anything we've seen. So, if which we landed near where they had landed, correct? Or no?
My memory is that it was not that close.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will remind you that you're meant to extract them. You have beacons that are available for the purpose of basically triangulating, right?
Mhm.
And as experts, Quadrissia and Celeste had worked out places for those beacons to go, and geographically you had locations. But you also know that accessing systems, especially like planetary systems or technological systems, there's ways that you can wire beacons into those things to find people or to find life signs, to find more specifically like the tracking systems that you use. You couldn't do this from the Variance because the Variance is on like a low power far surveillance mode because you at the time did not know whether or not this planet was habited by spacefaring species.
So, in theory, we could head back up, send a message that says, hey, these people are spacefaring, turn up the engines, and let's just, find them.
Absolutely. You also know that Celeste's message from the planetary surface was deeply garbled and did not include like 95% of the information that you would have wanted. And that's why you didn't land exactly where they were.
Well,
And they told Celeste that something could have gone wrong and we would have to deal with that situation as well.
Right, like you're not supposed to... There was something in my water and I don't...
Just an acceptable amount of silt.
A floating vial to determine whether or not the water has something in it that will eat the vial. You know that there are people here that you should probably be urgently helping as urgently as possible. But you've got to find them to do that.
I believe, Captain, Commander, that I have personally seen enough evidence that we could signal back to the ship to turn up the engine. Get our full scanner systems operational.
Yes, I would. I could see how that conclusion is a reasonable one to reach. I personally would caution against making broad strokes about this being a spacefaring society currently, because we have not seen actual signs of sentient life that is alive right now. However, this is a big enough decision with enough variables that I would be happy to leave this up to a group vote.
I mean, we did see some footprints, right, on the way back down here. So there's been somebody at least somewhat recently, and if we're walking up to someone's house, might be better to knock on the front door than to sneak in through a window.
My only concern is that this facility looks like it's at a different stage than that of a lot of the other archaeological evidence that we have seen so far. Maybe this belongs to a different people
But
who are not on the planet.
Either way, the Florxarp is cooked, is it not?
Which is why I leave this to a group vote.
You hear a voice from Quad, who is furiously writing a report. I think you need to suggest the method of the group vote, being the leader.
All in favor of signaling the ship to put out a full power scan, say aye.
But we don't want to do this secretly or something like that.
I think
because then other people's votes will influence,
Also, it's literally like 20 seconds to run up the stairs and send a thing about it. We don't have to. The most important thing is whether or not our transmission will get through, given how static and garbled the previous one was. We might be on our own down here no matter what we discover.
That is some information we might need.
So Celeste takes just the there are 5 of us. There are 3 people who are saying, like, informally that this is the path they would like to take. She takes that as the group vote.
All right.
Look, I mean, if we already lost some people down here, it's not like they'd have there's no one here that might not know that we're here. There's what? How many people are missing?
I believe a whole away team, so 5.
Yeah, so.
Sometimes the best away teams are single people.
In order to get this transmission through, we are probably going to have to go back above ground. So happy to go ahead and start making that trek.
Vito looks at the stairs longingly.
Quad's like sprinting up the stairs.
Yes, perhaps one of us doubles back while the others wait. I don't think that we should not press on.
Quad, yeah. Or
I can go. I am faster than Zyrea after all, and I can submit my report thus far.
You're not going alone, and Zyrea will start running after you.
We start racing up the stairs. The 2 of us that are meant to protect the rest.
Yeah, so
Vito just shoulder turns back to the same vigil that he was on before.
Can I reach out psychically just to feel if there are anybody other than us in the area? Like,
certainly.
I know it doesn't go out very far, but I just look for like immediate.
Yeah. Is that a PowerPoint expense there, Jack?
Up to you. I have detect thoughts, but I think last time we did it a couple times. I haven't used any points, and I know I did something similar last time.
Yeah, you did. I just didn't know if it was like a thing that we'd worked into the mechanics. Like
Charlie did it wrong enough that you can keep doing it, but it is expressly how Selmac interacts with psionics and nobody else in the universe.
I got it.
I'm happy.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Happy to spend the points on.
The problem, so you can reach your psionic energy out, but it will only pick up other people that are psionic and also doing that. Whereas last time you reached out psionically and learned about all the creatures.
Right.
So you just won't get as much information as Selmac did last time. But we'll say that was an atmospheric addition to the psionics.
I probably just won't do it if that's the way it works. Which is fine. I'm just curious.
Okay. So yeah, as the 3 remain below and Quad and Zyrea charge to the top, their footsteps echoing perhaps less than they would in a fully metal corridor. You arrive at the surface, and with this lighting, with this like level, you can notice now all of the details that you were missing as you were descending originally. There's clear indication of something like floors, even where there aren't landings. There appear to be like divisions in this metal lining. And up above the surface is essentially as you've left it, with the exception of with the edges of the area. There are a few like wriggling vines that are just kind of like twisting around that zone, feeling, moving, and they go very still as soon as you arrive fully on the surface.
I think Zyrea wins because it's a straight race, and Zyrea is just faster than Quad is.
Yeah.
But
sort out.
Yeah. Quad checks the vial first.
So as you look, that vial is just bobbing gently in this fountain that is a little bit motionless. You do notice that the water... Sorry, one sec. Let me let this dog in. You do notice that the level of water seems a little bit off. The where the water line was ahead of the session, like before you went down. It looks a little bit lower, but there's no indication as to where that water went.
How long? It's been not that long, right? 10 minutes or so since we went down.
Yes, and so there's like a little bit like a centimeter of difference in the level of the water line versus where it was before.
Quad grabs like a piece of she probably doesn't have string, so she grabs a piece of wire and attaches a heavy piece of scrap to it and drops it into the fountain so it hits the bottom, and then marks where the water level is now, so she can see later when they come back out, if they come back out. This is okay. I'm gonna send a message. Gets onto a smart slab and is like, "Hello, Variance." She addresses it to the comms officer that she knows is on water right now and says, "We are doing a routine check-in to make sure that we are able to contact you. Please advise at as soon as possible." Send.
Your slab pings, saying that a message has left the pad, and you wait for that confirmation that message received, and time drags on.
Vote. I have to add it to my report how that vote went and how it was operated. What did you vote for?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
What?
No vote conducted. Full stop. What are the tentacles doing?
Yeah, Zyrea is just honing in on those.
They have retreated into the area that you had passed from. They are visible. It seems a little bit like they make up a lot of the structure of this zone, though. There's just like a little bit of general movement, but they are not coming closer to you at this moment.
Zyrea just
think-
muttered under breath. That's what I thought.
The pad pops up with a message. Message queued. Would you like to send again? And it's basically it's stuck in your outbox feature.
Well, that solved that problem. Oh, Zyrea, you're about to get a message, and Quad starts running down the stairs, and the message comes in. It's like it's a race again.
Right.
Still loses. Like Zyrea still wins down the stairs.
Either they're racing again or they're running from something.
I win again.
Stairs are an unfair advantage.
What did the ship say?
The message didn't go through. Also,
Commander? Sorry.
can I say, fun update on the water situation up above. It's draining in a way that is strange.
What does strange mean?
It's a fountain that has water in it now, and it is draining, but not at a perceptible rate, but enough that I could tell within the 10 or so minutes that we'd been down here.
Are you able to draw any conclusions from that?
There might be a hole in the fountain.
Is it draining, or did something remove some of the water?
Maybe. There could be a hole in the top of the fountain.
You would, with your general applied science background or theoretical science background, you would not need a check. You're at like a four ranks, right? This is
Yes.
accurate.
My
Yeah.
reliable is 23.
Okay, so You do not need a check to know that it wasn't evaporation in that amount of time because you're in a non-arid zone. It is not that hot. There is no indication that it was removed roughly because you would expect that if somebody had gone in and pulled water out while y'all weren't paying attention, that there would have been splash zones on that side of that fountain. But instead, it's just that the water line has dropped a little.
It seems like it's draining to somewhere. Something could theoretically have landed on it, a giant bird that drinks a lot of water. Maybe?
Maybe it's a water elevator.
Maybe.
Did you take note? Oh, go ahead.
Is there anything actionable that is coming from your assessment here? What is your recommendation as the person who made the observation?
I think it's important that while we were up there waiting for the response, I was continuing the scientific rigor of this experiment on the water. And also, if we find a leak of water elsewhere, perhaps they are connected. Although, springs are common anyway.
Celeste turns to Selmac. Had Selmac been like messing around with the user interface while Quad and Zyrea were upstairs?
I think, unless he thought that he could glean a significant more amount from it, then he had stopped after realizing that he really only had access to the lights at the.
In that case, Celeste will glance at Selmac. Is there any reason that you can give me to not just start pressing buttons on this screen?
Well,
General safety.
yes, several. We could trigger an alarm. We could signal to somebody that we're down here.
It has
We
literally
could
no
suck-
bearing on the mission that we're meant to be doing.
Right, that as well, but it could suck all the air out of this room for all we know. I have no idea of the full functionality of this console.
This central
could be-
column could be filled with water, and it could vent all the water into the stairs and wash us down to who knows where.
Nothing could
It could
happen
release a beast.
as well. When you smash a
It could release the
keyboard,
beast.
that doesn't mean something's going to happen.
Sometimes people call that music.
Different kind of keyboard.
Charlie, who had sort of gathered that they could potentially like maybe rig one of our beacons into this system?
It's not something that you would have had to have gathered. You know that you can use these beacons. Basically, these beacons are technological, like they're metallic devices. They're a little bit of like a repeater, right, for a signal. And so you can either get them high up enough and put up a dish that would allow you to repeat to the other two. Or you can use existing infrastructure to achieve the same goal. You could basically connect. So I don't think it's like if you've used these before, that's part of the standard training. Get them somewhere where it's either high elevation or that you're using existing infrastructure.
Okay, so Celeste takes a deep breath and responds to Quad's assessment that it has no bearing on our current mission. I would argue that perhaps it would have no bearing, but I think we are being presented with a unique opportunity that we didn't know that we could have taken advantage of before. This is existing infrastructure that is currently functioning that perhaps one of our former crewmates might have passed by while they were investigating the planet. We could rig up one of our beacons here, and perhaps it would be helpful.
Quad is happy to, and kind of like gestures to it, that like you are in charge and the decision is yours no matter what anyone else says. Ultimately, our decisions don't matter because you are the one that makes them.
It's not a horrifically democratic process. We're all working together. I just happen to have the first set of information to kick us off the mission. I'll need help doing this.
I will
I've picked up the repeater and I'm attaching it.
Yeah. Quad says, as much as leadership on a field mission on a discovery ship is not democratic, that is designed so that when things are important and must be made with no discussion, the leaders are capable of making those decisions. And
We're
yes,
not right now where unilateral decisions are necessary.
I think Quad cares enough about Celeste to let it go and says, perhaps you're right. Selmac, do you need a hand?
Can I do this with pure computers? Or can I just do it?
You can.
Do I even need a
So the port, as previously described, is one that is compatible with yours. So you're very confident that once you have got the system in, that you can take advantage of the power running through this. You can take advantage of the data connection to run it. But you probably want somebody who has some sort of an engineering skill to basically make an interface between the port and yours. It's not universal.
Yes, Quad. I believe we need some wiring. And we're going to jumpstart this.
Yes, I am ever capable of the mundane creating things out of scrap metal. And she'll like start with a screwdriver and a knife and like start cutting things into places and things.
As you're doing this, you're working from the panel itself directly?
I think she's first using the last of probably her scrap metal and stuff that she brings on every mission to try and rig something up to be an interface first before going to touch the actual wiring.
Okay. You notice, go ahead and, I think because you are in the panel, it doesn't require a specific roll for perception. You do notice as you are like wiring into this, you can feel some etchings that have been made on this otherwise clean interior surface where the wiring has been cut away. There's something etched in there.
Yeah, I'll get my smart slab torch and try and see if I can look at the etchings.
It's in a very similar sort of language to whatever was written there originally, but it's basically been scratched in with a pen, like a pin, like something that's sharp enough to trace away at this very fine metal. It's a little messy, but somebody has written on this fairly recently. There's a few even scraps of like that metal on the bottom casing.
And it's definitely a language, right? Like the symbols exist in such a way that it can clearly only be. It's not someone doing like a weird doodle while they're waiting for something on this. It's set up like words.
It seems to be like it's running in a linear fashion. If you want more from that, you can just make, I guess, an understanding roll.
Sure. Wisdom or charisma?
This one's gonna be wisdom because it's like, what did somebody here do before?
Mm-hmm. $25.
Nice. You're reminded of simple graffiti. It's like if somebody went and wrote "Quad was here," and there is a definite like it's like scratched underneath, and there's a pride to the sort of like I've made it this far sort of thing.
Like someone came here and turned off all of the power and were like, I want someone to remember that it was me.
Less that. You expect that if it was something like that, it's more like a little bit of just childish graffiti. Like, I opened up this box and I can turn on it or turn off the power. It's mine. Again, whenever y'all were looking at this wiring earlier, this wiring wasn't torn out. It wasn't destroyed. Whatever turned off the power here hasn't destroyed the system.
Quad makes a note of like the part of that seems I mean, I guess all of it, because it would be hard to work out which was a name part of it, but we'll take a note of all of the formations of it and then just go back to what she was doing internally, like clucking her tongue a bit at the like innate childishness of it.
All right, and so I guess it's going to be an applied engineering from you, and then once if that succeeds, it will be from Selmac, your computer's check. Vito, are you still just doing observations? Zyrea, what are you up to?
I'm also doing now since we did so much, made so much noise up on the surface, and ran up and down the steps twice. Zyrea is doing perception, or is keeping a closer eye up top.
Well, I did my part well.
Vito is just
Oh my
still
shit! I mean, I've made 3 rolls.
still just watching. Kept quiet during the whole Celeste Zyrea conversation because kid needs to fight back sometimes. But just been kind of just watching everyone do stuff.
I haven't rolled above a 10.
Yeah, you haven't. And yeah, so as you attempt to wire this beacon into the system, go ahead and roll, or you've wired the beacon into the system effectively, but as you attempt to use the data connection of this existing network to basically amplify this beacon, go ahead and get Wi-Fi signal to everyone on the planet, more or less, right? Go ahead and roll me a d4. I'm glad I wrote this table 5 minutes ago.
Good job. 2. Rockstar wheel die.
Yeah. The door on this level, for no discernible reason, just slides open harshly, and just remains.
Immediately whips around, aiming his gun.
Yeah. And it's just sitting there, open. The beacon is flashing. It is flashing yellow, which is not a great sign. It's basically telling you that you've activated it. It's on. But it's not detecting or interfacing with any other beacons, which you would expect because you have not placed any other beacons. But that also means that it's not interfacing with anything that you had intended it to work with on this system.
Well, my dears, I believe that this did not work. You're muted, Kristen.
Kristen, you're muted.
Sorry, I stepped away to get water. And how many extra of these beacons do we have? I know we have a finite amount, but we saved a couple. Like when we how many did we bring? Versus how many did we say we needed to place? Versus how many were we able to save because of checks that Quad and I made in the first session?
You would be comfortable. You're comfortable with being able to place 3. You've taken 5. This one is not exactly dysfunctional, but whatever you've done that actually also caused it to open the door is not a great sign. You wouldn't want to rely on this one anymore.
Okay.
So you've got enough to make it. It's not a cancellation of mission sort of protocol.
This is why we bring extra, so we can do experiments such as these. We need our engineering models and our flight models, as it were, prototypes, et cetera, et cetera. This was fine.
I would agree with you under normal circumstances, but there's absolutely no reason why that door should have opened.
I'm gonna go in.
Stick around with
Zyrea, when you go in, are you going in, or do you say I'm going to go in?
Hold on. I say I'm going in.
Okay.
And I start I start stepping towards the door. My sword is out though.
I rush towards Zyrea to make sure that I am not leaving them in a door that's going to close behind them, but also secretly hoping that we do get cut off from the rest of the group for a bit.
Celeste will also follow behind, but are there any like random big rocks anywhere?
Yeah, Zyrea.
Yeah, Zyrea. I think that's. No, there's nowhere for there to be big rocks here.
Let's see. Okay, so Celeste will pull out another one of her screwdrivers and will wedge it into like the crevice between where like the door would be slamming shut to act as like a lever to try to keep it.
Okay, this is like a pocket door. That's wide, so it's like really flush, and so you kind of like lever it into where the pocket door has essentially opened up. And you kind of feel it sliding a little against this metal, back and forth as you're trying to find like a clear purchase. Vito, you've turned towards the door. Is anybody crossing into the threshold, stepping across, or you've got enough to go two abreast?
I'm going in.
and Quad is walking next to Zyrea.
If everyone's going in, Vito is purposely staying back to be the last one to enter.
I think Vito and Selmac kind of look at each other, look at the door, and then both elect to stay here.
Oh,
Charlie got a phone call.
Phone
I think
call.
Is that what they're saying?
Why is it so hard to find the scene of Sean William Scott in Final Destination getting his head cut in half as a GIF? Because that's what I imagined when the screwdriver was there. I'm like, that just like bursts up and
Yeah.
cuts somebody in the face.
Zyrea loses an eye.
There wasn't a
Zyrea would look cool with one
She looked
eye.
badass.
Yes. Sorry. My apologies. I thought it might be an urgent call. It was not. Unless you consider me getting to eat today urgent. So, Selmac and Vito are staying behind and watching that door as the other three move in.
Yeah, because now there's
Yeah.
no one watching up the stairs, no one watching down the stairs. Now there's just an open door.
I'm
So-
also
Yeah.
going to.
standing in the door.
I'm also going to look at the screen and see if I can tell that anything has changed on it.
Okay, yeah, excellent. Yeah, so one of those toggle switches has flipped over and turned not green, but a bright purple. And you could click it again if you so chose. It has that like sort of not grayed out thing that the lights had as well, right? So where the lights were not grayed out, this little zone is also not grayed out.
That's the only difference.
It's the only difference.
I think I could close that door, by the way.
Want to wait on that?
Yes. Just so that the commander is aware of our full capabilities at this moment.
Turn off the lights and you close the door. There are no lights inside the passageway as the others step through. This area is still dark. But as Zyrea like makes that first step into this zone, it too lights up, gentle. This sheer metallic wall extending in towards like away from that central pillar like a spoke. And that hallway just it is very long. You are welcome to
straight?
make. It is mostly straight. It seems to like maybe go down a little bit, but it's hard to tell whether it's that or just the fact that you're looking down a very long hallway. There is little on the walls. It's again the same kind of like patterning of you can see panels every so often.
As we walk in to a long corridor, Zyrea and Quad standing next to each other. Quad looks, but is looking at like Zyrea's leg muscles, and if they start to coil, Quad is going to try and accelerate quicker.
No, Zyrea is actually walking with a little bit of caution. She might be stupid, but she's not. She's still wise. So she is going to step forward with, like, she's going to be moving forward with, like, some gusto, but is still trying to keep an eye out for anything that might be moving further down the hallway.
Sure. Quad is still paying attention to Zyrea mainly, trusting that Zyrea will notice whatever she doesn't.
How far will you go with presumably Celeste? Are you following? Or are you just like holding that driver?
I'm monitoring. I'm on door monitoring duty.
Okay. How far will the two of you go, or what will the others like do in response to your travel here? Are you gonna go as far as you can see, or
Is there anything in the hallway that's like of particular note, or is it just same metal the whole way down that we can see at the moment?
It is dead same metal. There is not a whole lot of where do I go. There is no like, you know, if this was the ship, there would be like a nice like exit sign somewhere nearby, elevated and in a bright color so you could see it even in the smoke. There is none of that here.
Selmac and also Celeste, I guess if they're next to Vito, you probably see Vito having at some point pulled out like a little stylus and is doing like the tap, 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 tap on his smart slab. Eventually, probably go to Quad. Quad, you would get a message from Vito that just said, if you ran into anything, we have door control that could lock off any pursuit.
You get a message back that's like, tell Selmac good job. And Quad turns to Zyrea and says, I think they worked out how the door works.
Great.
But I still want to see what's
a door down here, though.
Corridor. I like look back and see a distant Celeste standing in a doorway.
Those panels are still on that like general track, like again a little bit lower than you would expect. Do you intend to? That is the one thing that you could probably interact with other than just continuing to walk.
If they get out of eyesight, Celeste will also send a ping to both of their smart slab that says we can't see you anymore. Please report back.
It's the da-da-da-da, and then a complaint about not being able to see us.
And then you'll just get a thumbs up
Amazing.
emoji from Zyrea.
Maybe we should go back. But right now, there are only two of us, and voting-wise, if one of us voted to go forward, the other one couldn't overrule that.
That is how numbers work. What do you want to do?
I'm kind of annoyed, and I just kind of want to keep going forward, but the mission is to save some people, and I don't know that the other three could do that mission without us.
Zyrea kind of kicks along the path a little bit. That's true. One last look down the hallway further. Seeing nothing. Okay, let's go back.
Vito, you get a response from Quad saying, we're coming back. The door will hopefully not be needed.
Yeah, Vito, who was in the middle of turning the slab around to Selmac, hold it. It was doing like the two-finger try to zoom out or zoom in thing on the like good job Selmac part, and then bings again. It's like shit.
As you approach, Celeste, you feel like a soft pressure on that screwdriver that you're holding. There's like a soft mechanical whir.
Selmac betrayed us.
Two things happen in a tandem. Celeste will shout, Selmac, did you adjust any of our settings? And before he gets a response out, she will text out to Quad and Zyrea, doors closing, run.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah. Quad probably still has her smart slab up and says, well, race you. Start sprinting. We're 1 second away from a race at any point.
Has something
Yeah.
visually changed on my end once they say that? Like looking at
Yeah. The button that like is a toggle is kind of like it has that since that it looks like it's been jiggled. Like as though you had run your finger across that touch screen. And then it just kind of like bleh, and then the screen flashes as Celeste has that screwdriver in that there's like a that yellow tone that you've seen on this, and the purple goes and it flashes gray, then back and brightens up, and then it flashes one more time, and then some sort of warning message appears.
there's something the console. I feel like I'm not the only one accessing this.
I can't come over and look at it. I am trying to keep the door open.
You go ahead
Is the
and
screwdriver doing
uh,
anything? I'm just curious.
give me.
The way the door is situated, is it like the door slides into
Yeah,
a
that's
wall?
what they said.
Yeah, it's a pocket door.
Vito, if everything is like happening, all of a sudden Vito will rush forward and take off the hat I forgot that he was wearing, but take off the Trillbilly hat and just try to jam it into the door.
The Trillbilly. That's a
All right,
Trillbilly.
so-
The old screwdriver and hat
That's
defense.
really gonna
Yeah.
help.
I
Just hoping to
need,
get some type of like gear jammed or something.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like an elevator door, right? Shouldn't take much.
Yeah.
From Zyrea and Quad, I need quickness checks, and from those of you involved directly, I need a kinematics, right? Kinematics?
21.
Yeah.
Do you want that as a dexterous strength? It matters a
Uh,
little bit.
Yeah. For you, given what you have described, I can't imagine you trying to put much like physical pressure on it. How are you doing this? Are you trying to like jiggle that screwdriver into a place that it keeps it from moving, in which case it's dex, or are you just trying to brute force it?
No, it's definitely a case of like, I know how levers work because I am an engineer.
Wait for
Okay.
that.
So you can
would
dex
it be? Would it be dex or strength for a hat?
Jesus
I'm not
Christ.
sure that's doing anything,
I-
man.
Yeah, I feel like you've just got a
Look.
grip on it, like, and you're using the hat for a grip on it. That's what my brain comes up with. So, like,
While Jack got a 22, it was in the right.
Yeah. I'll roll again because I
yeah.
rolled in the wrong place.
okay. I mean, I
dirty
don't mind a 22. Like,
That's fine. It's funny to fail.
okay.
Dirty 20 on the kinematics track.
Yeah.
I would have won the race. That's the most annoying thing.
You would have just beat me. Shame.
I don't deserve to win these ones.
So you feel like as you are both sprinting down this hallway, Zyrea, you pull a little bit ahead, and in turn, let me double check that. You kind of, Celeste, you kind of move and maneuver your thing, but you can definitely feel that this driver is slipping. As you're watching that screen, Selmac, it flashes through several other screens. The UI is quickly changing as though it is being manipulated. All of the little visual, the grayed out zones for control of various systems flick to a color that indicates like you could probably interact with them at this point, but then it switches to another screen. And go ahead and I need an escape check from you, Quad. Zyrea, you flow through this doorway.
An escape check. I have a rank in that.
You do have a rank of that.
The only rank.
This is
What
where
are the
you
rest of
are
y'all?
gonna get final
Well, that didn't
destinations.
work.
Is there any way to aid in this, like pulling them through
Yeah.
the door?
Yeah, y'all can do all sorts of things. You're right there at the doorway.
Vito's arm too.
Hold on. How thick is this door?
You suspect it's. I mean, when you saw the pocket space, it's like that thick. So
Yeah.
it's not that thick. You
Inch.
just have to get.
How
No,
thick is
Jesus.
this?
Like, yeah, several inches thick.
How thick is this
4?
door versus a blast from my star spear?
You can't say that without knowing what the material is, I don't think.
Alright. That's fine. So just an escape roll?
Yeah. I was gonna give you that 22. You did this to yourself.
Sure, 18.
Alright. So, and then how did you help, Vito? You said you were gonna help?
It was going to be kind of like the thing of like Vito trusts his old man reflexes enough to be able to pull an arm back through if he needs to, but it's basically just like hand out to either grab and kind of just fall back, or just use me to pull yourself in faster, basically.
Alright. Okay, so your body is in the way. Give me an escape check, too.
Okay. I will use my ability to give myself advantage on the escape check.
Wonderful.
I like that
Oh,
I
yeah.
can put the
Found
dice
the
rolls.
gift, finally.
I
And
put in
say
the
the
wrong
dice
one.
rolls, panel.
Hey,
Wait, actually.
I don't have to worry about these things when I'm not.
Fine, it's just on stream, but it's like
I
only
like
his
it.
face.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, because
You need to hover over it briefly just so that it
We need to do it in
shows.
the other one.
Oh, this is a different thing. Like, as well.
Waiting on this.
Oh, the first one's a 25.
Nice.
Two shit. You've got good escape.
Oh, the other one wasn't
That
one.
one.
I'm
But
glad that's
25.
advantage and not disadvantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the moment in which your control, Celeste, over the store slips, there's very little that you can do about it. That screwdriver slips out of your hands. The door, just as rapidly as it opened up, goes to shut. Vito's hand comes across that way, and just as he snatches and pulls on Quad, and Quad is running at her maximum speed, perhaps like thinking about already like how she would get through that with her star spear if she needed to. Just the two of you kind of collide and fall forward. That door slams shut, and that screwdriver that was just pulled out of Celeste's grip and the hat both just whoosh. The screwdriver part of the handle just seems to almost implode upon itself. The metal gets caught underneath the flow of the pocket door. And like part of the trilby is just like hanging out, is caught just by the brim.
I was just by the brim.
Yeah, like
I will say that Quad would not have used a star spear unless it was while running to just try and obliterate the door. She was thinking already how she could then go and investigate the corridor by herself once the door was locked on her.
got it.
But she like kind of quite agilely flips up from having knocked Vito over and offers him a hand and says, "Thank you."
Yeah. Before the hand is raised, Vito kind of does like the like cat, kind of like and kind of takes the hand to like get up.
Selmac, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna unplug the repeater, the relay, whatever it was called.
The
Okay.
beacon.
The beacon.
Yeah. Do that. When you unplug that beacon, since it's kind of like rigged into the system, since you didn't have a fitting adapter, do you do so carefully or quickly?
Quickly.
Okay. There's a little pop, a hiss, a snap, and the panel immediately in front of you goes dead. A moment later, the lights on the level that you are on go out, and a level above, a level below flick out. But that next, like, there is still light below you, and there's still light further above. One moment. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Looking at the other two, just kind of cracks in the room. So like rips the thing out. Says, "I don't know what was happening, but I don't know if it was an AI or somebody on another console, but things were happening. I was not touching it. There's some presence here."
Interesting. Celeste is looking sadly at not too like a little bit sadly at where her screwdriver has since been decimated. Not her only one, just her Phillips head single tier. And
there's no Phillips head on the variance. Phillips head is an inferior torque. It's all torques.
Quad will hold her hand out to Selmac for the beacon.
Sure, I'll hand it to you. Is it broken? Did I break it?
I don't think it was working properly before.
Sorry, that was a Charlie question.
Oh.
One moment. Okay.
Smash it.
It was working before. It just wasn't doing the thing that wanted or was hoping.
Not working for us, if that's the case.
So the question was a Charlie question, but it is something that you could examine either from a science perspective or a engineering perspective. Engineering, it would be like if you've interacted with it physically. Science would be like what
on a visual level, are the lights off and stuff?
Oh yeah, no, that thing went as dead as the rest of the 3 floors as soon as you pulled it out abruptly.
Okay. Yeah, I'll hand it to Quad. I might have fried it, or well, it might have been fried the minute we put it in. I can't say.
Yeah, I'll look at it with the science choice, if that makes sense. I don't really know how. Yeah, like instead of looking at the damage done by the jury rigging and like it being ripped out, maybe
how it's supposed to function and why.
Yeah, access like its little data thing of what happened to it and stuff like that, if it has one, and try and piece together the information that way.
Yeah, sure. So you can basically plug in the material to your slab, I
won't.
Okay.
Because it just had something weird happening to it.
Okay.
Zyrea slab.
Hey, what are you doing with my slab?
Oh, sorry. She would have asked, firstly. Can I borrow your slab, Zyrea?
Okay, here you go.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't steal it. I meant I would. And then I'll plug it into Zyrea's slab.
Goes straight from, what are you doing with my slab, to, oh, here you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's the difference between stealing and asking, right?
Yeah. Whatever storage hardware on here, it doesn't have any immediate detrimental effect to the slab. And you're just looking for the log of what has just happened?
Yeah. Basically, whatever, because you said I could look at it through either applied engineering or theoretical science, whichever way directs me towards theoretical science.
All right, so the way that this device works, or is intended to work, is it can send out a signal. It can send out a signal to something similar to itself. It can piggyback onto another signal. And it just essentially sends back ping times for how long it's taken for it to receive a response from a like system. And it does that with... I have that echo again.
Yeah.
Okay. So it does that with the software essentially that is tied to your slabs and the chips that are sewed into various pieces of equipment to determine where members of the variance away teams might be. And when it was plugged in, for that brief moment before it flashed, there's like a series of timestamps of what message it received, etc. And it did send out a broadcast and receive pings from functional devices in the area beyond the set of yours. It also received a second, like there is some sort of access that occurred right after yours did. And looking at the timestamps, you can judge that it was a little bit after you accessed the door itself. And you suspect that somebody else was using your beacon the way you intended to use it.
Oh, as soon as we plugged it in, someone else piggybacked onto it and was accessing the beacon and the terminal with our hardware. So as soon as we plugged it in, they were aware that it existed and they overrode it somehow. I'm not really good at computers.
Is there a port identifier for the person who was trying to access or who I guess successfully accessed our hardware?
Yeah, I'll have a look.
The port, it appears that it was just from the system that you are in. So, like, it reads as though it was exactly at that door.
Nothing that is useful. It seems to have come from exactly this system.
So there are other access points for our system here, or this system, not our system, but the system that we have since discovered.
Or the beacon is not sophisticated enough to have been able to trace where the intrusion came from. It really just tracks its own what it's doing, but
it's very possible that somebody was accessing the console remotely and ordering these things through the console. There would be nothing to trace, really, not from such a interface.
Exactly.
The pace at which it happened, you are assuming, like, you would probably assume that either there's live, very adept monitoring occurring, or that it was just
automatic code of some kind.
Yeah, specifically, yeah, because your computer skill would say that, Selmac.
Yeah, good.
My current thinking is that I see one of two most probable possibilities. There's some kind of artificial intelligence at work here within this system, or some kind of incredibly detailed malware meant to interface with any kind of foreign technology.
I once again come back to this idea, though, that this isn't Celeste goes into sort of the back of her own head. It is one thing to interact with foreign technology. It's another to be able to know how to use it for its intended purpose, which is what Quad said it was doing. That almost suggests that they have seen this sort of tech before.
Well, we can only presume that the first away team, Quad said that their signals were picked up besides ours. So whoever was accessing the system, or whatever was accessing the system, must have interfaced with these already. And
perhaps
been able to... Sorry, what?
I said, yes, perhaps through our away team. That's a good salient point.
That's what, yes. So, Commander, I can only assume that whatever force is at play is imminently hostile, and, well, my thinking is that our crew is either captured or dead. I know that this is a lot to assume from such a short interaction, but everything about that was hostile. It was trying to seal us away from each other, divide and conquer.
Was the door, so there are the stairs that lead up, there are the stairs that lead down.
and then there was the door that closed, and maybe presumably a couple of other closed doors that we've not noticed, question mark?
Yes, there are seams that you can see. There's landings below you. You expect that there are other rooms available. You can still have a little bit of filtered light. It's hard to tell from 100 feet above you, but there is the stairwell opening at the top.
Well, we were sent down this team with the understanding that it was going to be dangerous. I understand if people want to turn back at this juncture, and I support your decision in doing so. However, I think it just comes with the job description, right? So we continue downward.
If they're stuck, we gotta go get them.
Yes. This is a slightly out of game question. Is the way that it would work is that we're the last away team. If we die, nobody else comes down? Or is it like they're just going to keep sending people to try to retrieve progressively dead groups?
It depends, I think, on, like, Jack, feel free to correct me on this since this is a, like, sort of protocol for a Imperial ship. But it depends on what level of communication happens ahead of it.
I would say that absolutely everything that has happened in this mission is against Imperial Discovery Ship Protocol. So the people that sent this team down are already potentially acting outside of protocol, so nobody would know what would happen.
And in terms of, like, actually, we're going to resolve a bit of this with a sort of final flashback before we step into.
Too.
Yeah, go ahead and make a bureaucracy check.
I did take that thing for this.
Go ahead and make a bureaucracy check, and then we will do a cutaway.
I'm gonna guess.
Yes.
Let me know if it's charisma.
You have to be talking to someone for it to be charisma.
$17.
Yeah. You expect that the results of this will be an investigation. But not necessarily of a ground-bound investigation furthering what you have done. You expect that there is going to be an investigation internally. So as we come up on 1 o'clock, the camera sort of spirals up and up these stairs, goes through the pathway that you traveled through, this animal warren, that you kind of hunched through and or walked comfortably through, respectively. And the vines themselves kind of wriggling, moving forward. One of those small skeletons that was not fully desiccated is just back into the warren. Go further back and we see this beachhead that you had landed on, the ship itself, and the ship itself where the panel for communications with Variance is blinking, flashing, and we cut to a different screen on the Variance itself. And it is once again the security screen where we see the comms officer that had previously briefed Celeste, who in that moment where we had watched them like bring themselves under composure abruptly as they had as Celeste had walked into the room nervously, we see them pacing back and forth just as nervous as they had been before Celeste had entered the room. They're looking back at their own panel of screens, and we can't make any judgment from this far away from this kind of surveillance. But they're exhibiting signs like they're chewing at their knuckles, walking back and forth. And they turn sharply the same direction that they did when Celeste had walked into the room. And they straighten up their shoulders and they move to attention as someone walks into the room. And we cut back away to where we can see the hole in the ground from which y'all have slowly climbed that fountain, where that water is still in the little vial, is still bobbing. On the marker, we see that it's dropped a little bit further where Celeste has, or where Quad has marked it. The metal line descending deep into this fountain. And with a snick, we see as paneling begins to close over the stairwell. And that's where we're ended for the day.
We're going to get stuck behind some door.
Yep, it was gonna happen.
Yep.
Doors, the worst enemy in D&D.
Right.
Well,
On
you
that
avoided
note-
the entire first encounter, so good for y'all.
Well, that sounds like great.
Yeah, it definitely
sounds
sounds
really
like
good.
Kristen just exploded something.
There is no railroading in this game. There is merely door closing.
You close enough doors and it just is a corridor anyway, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you
One door
for
closes, another door closes.
thank you for joining us for this, the first of 2 variance episodes. It won't be 2 months before the next one. It will be a week.
We'll all die next week.
Yeah,
Hey.
We just
Zyrea
immediately,
and Quad and Vito will be fine. Like,
No.
we just immediately run out of oxygen in this like tube.
I actually can asphyxiate 2 different ways, just so you know. I have 2 accesses to asphyxiation. Jesus. But yes, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Charlie, for running the game and making it so that I don't have to for a couple of weeks. Helpful. We will be back next week.
All right. And come on Tuesday for the other game, for the Immer Saga.
Yeah, we won't pivot halfway through about our whole plans.
Definitely not. Definitely not. All right. Thanks, everybody.